So, you started your acting career at a very young age. What inspired you to try acting?
So it's kind of a funny story. I really didn't get into acting. I had no interest in acting until I was probably 13 when a friend of mine suggested I try out for community theater. And it had never even crossed my mind. I had no interest whatsoever. But, I was just looking for a way to pass the time. It was fall. It was the fall season. And the sports were kind of dying down, stuff like that. Just, the house league stuff. So I decided to take up my friend on auditioning for this play. And I loved it so much that I just kind of ended up doing it for the rest of my days. So here I am now. But it kind of all started when I was 13 and just tried out for this community theater show based entirely on a friend's recommendation. And I'm glad it happened because it's been an interesting ride. But yeah.
Wow, okay. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you influenced by any actors or actresses currently? Or in the past, have you ever been?
I have. There are some old-time actors that I really admire, like Cary Grant. I saw Ben-Hur when I was younger, the 1959 film that won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and I loved seeing Charlton Heston up there. And I actually went to the same high school that Charlton Heston went to, so that's kind of like a cool thing we have in common. Charlton Heston was a graduate of my high school. Rock Hudson was a graduate. So a lot of the old Hollywood actors went to my high school in Chicago, which is ironic. But I'd say Charlton Heston, Cary Grant, and then, there are a lot of actors I like nowadays whom I admire and look up to their work, but I think those are two big ones. I've also been a big fan of Harrison Ford just because he's done so much and he's he's just a really talented guy, and I think it's cool to see how his career has spanned for so long with Indiana Jones and Han Solo and The Blade Runner and Jack Ryan. It's crazy. He's done so much. I think it's so cool.
Oh yeah, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been starstruck by anyone so far? And if so, when, where, and who was it?
Let's see. Was I starstruck? I haven't really been starstruck in a while. The way I kind of go about it is if I see someone whom I admire, unless it was like Paul McCartney. I think Paul McCartney would be a very big starstruck, or if Jimi Hendrix were still around and I saw him walking down the street, that would be pretty crazy. But I think in terms of starstruck, usually the way I go about it is if I meet one of the people whom I admire, I usually just introduce myself or shake my hand and say, hey, I admire your work. It doesn't happen too often, or just different actors I see in LA, or I remember one time I was a big fan of The Walking Dead. I still am, but it was funny. I saw the man who plays Herschel at my hotel in Vancouver, and I walked up to him and I was like, hey man, I just want to say really good work on the show. And it wasn't really like a starstruck thing, but it was more so just me introducing myself and having a small relationship where we know each other, and that's kind of how I go about it. I make these small relationships and talk about other actors' work, and it's a support system really in my eyes. So.
Okay, I don't think I'd be able to do that. I'd be pretty nervous.
No. I don't know. It makes sense, just to go up to someone and just have a conversation and just be cordial, and yeah. But I wouldn't say I've been starstruck, but I think if I were to be starstruck, it would be if I were in London and I saw Paul McCartney. I was on a tour one time and I saw Paul McCartney's house, and even just seeing his house, it was a little bit starstruck. I was a little starstruck. It's crazy. I think he'd be the most starstruck person I could ever see in the entire world, Paul McCartney.
Okay. So, let's see. What is it like being on a show with Peyton List, Skai Jackson, and Karan Brar, who have been acting together for quite a while now.
Yeah. So, I mean, the show's been going on for over 2 years, so it's kind of cool how the relationships we've developed. I think Peyton, Skai, and Karan, the difference is that they were on a show for 4 years prior to some of the other cast members' arrival to the scene. And the cool thing is that they were very welcoming from day one, and you know, they made sure that we felt safe and welcome and that we weren't like the newbies on this new show, because it is a spinoff of their old show. And I've never really felt like there was much of a difference in the amount of time we've all spent together, because we all know each other pretty well at this point, considering we spend hours upon hours every day with each other. But so I, you know, in some respects, you know them like the back of your hand just because you're with them all the time. And it's weird because when we're on hiatus, right now, for instance, we're on hiatus, and you know, we're in between filming seasons, and so I don't see them as often as I used to, and it's like this weird withdrawal thing, because when you spend so much time with these people and then suddenly you're just not spending time with them anymore, it's like, oh, I wonder what they're up to, and it's like, you know, I hope they're doing well, and you think like it almost feels like a withdrawal that you should be with them. You're like, oh man, I this feels weird not being with them. Just it's kind of hard to explain, but I mean, we spend so much time together, so it would make sense, I guess. But working with them is great, and I think that's the bottom line, is that they've always been super supportive, and we really have a good dynamic on the show. We're all very supportive of each other, and you know, very respectful, and that's what, you know, makes a good show, I think, just being respectful and working hard.
Right. Yeah, that has to be pretty important, you know, getting along with your co-stars.
Yeah, and we get along very well. That's the cool thing. Like, we've never had problems or anything, which, you know, in Hollywood, I suppose it can be a thing where like some casts don't get along, but you know, I think from what I understand, that's a rare thing, but luckily it's super rare with us. So. Well,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
So we know like what your relationship is with your co-stars, but what does an average day look like while you're filming the show?
It's a very busy day. So we work Monday through Friday, and how it works is that Monday we get a new script over the weekend. So Saturday or Sunday we'll be reading our scripts at home, and then we come in on Monday to read it at a pre-read. So we all sit together at a table we have two executive producers who are both great, Adam Lapidus and Pamela Eels. And we sit down with Adam in one room upstairs in the production office, and then in the downstairs production office, the crew is sitting down with Pam. And there are two separate meetings going on, and Adam is working with the cast, and we're preparing for our table read. So we all sit together and we read through the script, and he gives us notes. And we sit down with the writers, talk about how, you know, this joke can hit better for the read, or what to emphasize, because, you know, with sitcom, it's like all very methodical. And then Pam is simultaneously talking to the crew about production details and how they're going to produce certain aspects of the show and the script, and she's working that table downstairs. And then after we finish our separate meetings, we come downstairs and the crew meets with the cast, and we all sit down for our official table read, and the network comes in and they hear how we put on the show, and then we leave, the cast leaves, and they give the network gives the writers and the producers notes. And then while that's happening, we rehearse in the stage. So and that's Monday. And then when rehearsal is done, we come back the next day, and Tuesday, we call it Hardworking Tuesday, just because we work the entire day rehearsing with the director, and we are actually going to put on a show by the end of the day, and we put on the show for our producers. So we actually go from set to set in the studio, and we perform the scenes for the producers so that they can make rewrites and make things funnier, essentially. And so we do that on Tuesday, and after we finish running through the script, on Wednesday we come in and we receive a new script. So every night we're receiving updated scripts with like funnier things or different changes. And then on Wednesday, we do the same thing. We rehearse all day, and then we put on a show for both the producers and the network who comes in. And then the network gives the producers notes. And then when we have that final script, we call it the shooting draft. And then on Thursday and Friday, we film the shooting draft. It's kind of a crazy process, but you get the hang of it after a while. And, I mean, we've already done 2 seasons of it. So, I mean, that's got to be like 42 episodes. It's pretty much like second nature to us now, which is cool.
Well, that's good.
That's
yeah,
like
I bet it was nice having your co-stars helping you.
Yeah, and that's like the super detailed process I just gave you. So that's, if you want to know like everything that happens from Monday to Friday, that's exactly what happens. So, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go from acting to singing now.
Cool.
How did it feel to have your music played on Bunk'd?
It was very cool. Actually, I got to thank Disney Channel for doing that because I, it's funny. I remember first coming in for the show, and the character Xander was read as a, good-loving. The character description was like a good-natured, happy-go-lucky, guitar-playing counselor. And I came in, and they had me sing a few times, and so the channel already knew that I had an interest in singing, and eventually they were like, hey, do you want to take this singing thing even further? And I sat down with Steve Vincent over at Disney A&R, and I was like, hey, it'd be great if we could do something like musical on the show. And he's like, I totally agree. Let me see if I can find some songs, and I'm going to shop around, and we'll get a song for you to sing on the show. I was like, that would be amazing, and thanks, basically thanking him for the opportunity. It was really cool. So we had that meeting. And then he found a song written by some writers in L.A. And then, so I didn't write the Tidal Wave song, but I sang it. And that was kind of like my introductory into like the music side of my career. And because I had always like posted Instagram videos and stuff like that of me singing, so people knew that I had a love for singing. But this was kind of like my opportunity to show people that, I could perform as a singer. So we did this whole music video on Bunk'd, and it was the introductory to this whole Tidal Wave single, which played on Radio Disney for a bit, and it was kind of the introductory to the next step, which is my single that's coming out, and I'm really excited for the single to come out. This one I actually wrote, and I didn't produce it, but I wrote it, and it's like my first original self-written song, and it's so different than Tidal Wave, but it's a good different, and I think people will like it.
Okay. How would you describe your musical style?
Well, my musical style is very much singer-songwriter, so, I write every single song that I sing and produce with my producers. And the style is kind of like Ed Sheeran, John Mayer-esque, John Legend. Those are some of my big influences. But then a lot of the time, like I grew up in a choir environment, so in school I was doing choir, so I know a lot of like music theory and like sight reading and stuff like that. So it was cool to kind of incorporate these elements of gospel that are in my music. It's kind of cool. We have this one song that we're in production with, and it's got like a whole gospel choir behind it. I mean, it's so cool, and it's very different sounding. It's very mature, and I think it's mature enough that people outside of Disney will like it, and obviously, the kids who watch Disney, I think their parents will like it too. But then it's still very much in the vein of Disney, where the kids will find it catchy. And the first single that we actually we just finished production on the single. And we're working with a producer named Justin Stanley, and Justin actually just got nominated for a Grammy, which I'm super happy for him. So he did some work with Prince and got nominated for a Grammy. So I'll be interested to see, how the song turns out. But we just we pretty much finished production, so I'm excited for everyone to hear it.
Okay, that is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of cover songs. what's the process of choosing a cover song that you sing?
Well, honestly, it's very spontaneous. I'm just like at home, and I have two guitars. I have a Fender T-body, and I have a PRS. I'm looking at it. It's in the other room. It's a great guitar. It's an electric. But basically, I grab the guitars and I just start fiddling around, and then I'm like, you know what, I should see if I should sing a little song. And then I go on my app. I have a Guitar Tab app. So if I search a song that I want to sing, then I just search up the chords for that song. And then I spend like 10 minutes practicing the song and singing along to the chords that I'm learning. So I learn as I go, but I know the chords, so I just need to know the order of the chords and where they come in, stuff like that. It's pretty basic. But then I go into my phone, and after I have it down, I just record it, and I pick out like the best snippet or the part that I think is Instagram worthy, essentially, and then I post it. It's pretty simple, but it's worked for me, and I've been doing it for a year, so people like it though. They kind of eat it up, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like that's definitely not something that most people could do. I mean, me personally, I know that I wouldn't be able to learn pretty much a whole song in like 10 minutes. Like, no way.
I just go for like the basic chords. I'm not like a Jimi Hendrix when it comes to guitar, but it's just like carrying a rhythm and chord progression. It's pretty basic, but it's cool to see how supportive the fans are of just like liking the music and the small little covers that I do, because again, it is very spontaneous, and it's just, I think it's cool to see like how much they like it, and I think they'll even like the original content even more than the covers. That's why I'm so excited for them to hear this first single. I think it's going to blow their minds. I'm really excited.
Okay. Do you have a favorite cover song that you've done?
I really like Ed Sheeran. Anything that I do Ed Sheeran. So I've done, like, in the past, I think last year I just covered I See Fire. And then this year I just did A-Team. And that got a really good response on Instagram, and I think people really liked it, so that was cool. But, yeah. And then every once in a while I try to interact with my fans in Latin America, just because they love music so much. It's crazy. Like, for some reason, music is huge in Latin America. And, I try to sing a song in Spanish. Like, I remember one time I sang an Enrique Iglesias song, and they loved it. And it ended up being, like, one of my most interacted with posts. And that was so cool. And, yeah.
Okay. Talking about your fan base a little bit, have you ever created, like, a name for your fan base?
I've never really thought about it. I mean, I've heard, like, people say, oh, Kevinators or, like, Quinnators or something, but I don't really know if there's a name for it. I mean, if there is a name for it, then I suppose they can come up with it on their own. But usually it's just, like, people who like Kevin Quinn, I guess, which is
okay,
which is good enough for me.
Like,
anyone who cares enough. No, there's not really, like, a name for it. But, I mean, if someone comes up with something creative along the way, then that'd be awesome. I think that'd be funny. But I think at the end of the day, it's just like, I'm grateful to have any fans in the first place. I don't really need, like, a name for my fans. But if anyone cares enough to actually, like, go on my Instagram and search to see what I'm doing, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's crazy that, like, almost 1 million people on my Instagram care what I'm up to. It's like, I don't even care what I'm up to, but it's really cool.
That is actually pretty cool. All right. I mean, that's fair, I guess it would
be. It's like funny. It's like you never think, like, wait, why do so many people, like, care if I, am singing a song? But then it's like, oh, they really like it. And it's funny to see that. It's crazy.
That's pretty encouraging, right?
Yeah. Oh, super encouraging. That's why I love them. So many thanks to them.
Okay. All right. Well, I just have one last question.
Yeah.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
Well, after the single, we're going to go into production on the EP. So there is going to be an EP that comes out, and we've written about 30 to 35 songs, and we're picking the best 5 to 8 songs, and we're going to go into full production. We're going to hire different producers. So obviously, we've been working a lot with the man Justin I told you about, Justin Stanley, and we co-wrote a song with Justin, and I think it's going to be one of our best songs. Definitely got gospel elements, but also classic rock elements, and I can't reveal the name of the song just yet, but that's going to be on the EP, and I think Justin's going to produce it, and he co-wrote it, which was probably why it's so good, because he's such a talented songwriter. But it's going to be cool to see it all come together, and I think for now that's the biggest project that's going to happen. And then obviously third season of Bunk'd, hopefully. We're just waiting on a season pickup. And then in the meantime, you know, I'm always talking about doing feature films, because I want to keep the acting muscles flexed, and as important as music is to me, I very much want to immerse myself in the world of acting as well, which is why Bunk'd was a great opportunity, and you know, anything that comes my way in terms of like feature films or other shows, then that's super important to me, and I want to take different companies up on that offer. So just fingers crossed.
Right. Do you have any last words, any last little things you want to add?
Any last things? I think overall, I just should say that obviously people have been waiting a long time to hear some of my music, and I guess I just want to say thank you, because you know, it has been a slow build, because it's taken time to write all these songs. I mean, I've literally spent the past year in a studio writing different songs, and it's a process to write songs. I mean, it doesn't just happen. And you know, the fact that we've already had like 30 of them, it just goes to show how much time I've been spending on it. So I understand that people are waiting, and I promise the payoff is going to be big. So I got to thank the quote unquote Kevinators for being so intrigued, and I promise that the payoff will be good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
Of course. Of course. All right. Well, I hope you have a great day, and good luck.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.